Hi there, this is Philip from Beyond the Tabletop. This is the 5th video in the Build and Paint Gorgon series, and in the last video we concentrated on assembling the cab. Now we look at the rear section featuring the internal corridor and how best to mask it up ready for painting. While it's not the most interesting topic, it's an essential step in the painting process. So let's dive right in. Now, depending on what kind of colour scheme you want to do for the inside of Gorgon, this will dictate how you're going to paint up this most inner section, because it also will affect how you're going to paint up this section here. Now, there's two sort of variations you can do. One is where the entire Gorgon is painted in the same external colour, which sort of mimics how the D-Day landing craft look. So it would all be grey, for example. As my colour scheme for my tanks are grey, I would also do grey on the inner colour. However, I sort of want to do it in the alternative colour scheme that I've seen that appears in some of the books and the artwork, is that the inside of the Gorgon is a much lighter colour. So for example, I could actually do the white colour that the driver cab has been painted in and do that in this section here. And then this armour plate here will be in the normal grey. So this bottom section is all in a much lighter white colour, or perhaps a lighter grey colour if you don't want to go to such an extreme contrast. However, I like the idea that all of my tanks are going to be white on the inside, even for things that are open topped. This is kind of how I envisage doing my centaurs when I get around to painting those up. So I sort of want some match between the two. Now, it's worth bearing all of this in mind at this stage, because the next step is to then mask off the areas that I don't want to paint. So ideally I just want to concentrate on this inside panel, probably going up to this lip here, because that will be quite an easy area to just mask off with a piece of masking tape when I want to concentrate on painting the rest of the Gorgon up. And likewise with the other side, I will obviously have the door in place which will cover this panel up here, so I don't want to actually paint up any of this, so this whole area needs masking up, and then it's probably a matter of whether to paint up that lip or to mask that up. So it might be that from this lip here I will do all grey, and then from this beam here I will go white inwards, and then that way there's a good divide between two colours. If I'd thought about it a bit more in detail, I could have painted up these segments at the same time as painting up the cabin, especially if I'm doing the same colour scheme, because it's all mostly white. So that is something to bear in mind. I've probably not done this in the most efficient order. Saying that, it's still a good idea to do the cabin first, because that's a good practice of doing that colour scheme, and if you muck it up it's not going to be too visible. So similar to how I did the cabin, I just now need to go away and mask these areas up that I want to paint. I've gone away and I've masked everything up. I've split this into two parts. The first is masking up the interior cabin detail, protecting the paintwork that I've already done. You can see that I've done it here and also on the other side. So to do that, I initially masked up the entire rim of the doorway on the inside all the way around, and I'd done that on the other side as well. Then I'd got some cellophane, scrunched that up into a ball and placed that into the middle of the cabin. I could then use that as a mount for the rest of the masking tape, which I've then built here, which has created a nice little protective seal for my cabin. So hopefully when I'm using my airbrush, there won't be any paint going into that cabin and ruining the detail that I've already painted. I also applied a small bit of tape to the visor slot just here. So I use a variety of sizes of Tamiya tape. Tamiya tape is designed for model makers. It's really low tack, so when you peel your tape off, it doesn't take the paint with it. The second part was to tape up the majority of the exterior so I could concentrate on painting up this internal area. Currently these parts are dry fitted. This is just so I can show you how I've done the masking and how you can see what parts I'm going to be painting in the next step. I will replicate what I've done with the cabin, so I can paint up this section first, then create a seal along here, which will protect it while I'm painting the rest of the tank. On the back section, I've got this all masked off along with the exterior of the door, because I want to paint that with the rest of the outside of the tank. But the inside bit isn't masked because I'm going to paint that at the same time as I paint the interior. And once this is all painted and assembled, I can actually just close this door and that will create the seal for this side, so I don't need to worry about taping up this section in any way. For this section here where the magnet is, along with the corresponding section on the door, I'm thinking I might paint that up as a hazard stripe, which is why I haven't masked off that area. Now these sections all come apart into their corresponding pieces, so I can easily paint them up separately. For the cabin and the right hand side that's glued together, I masked along this little ridge just here and down that front section. I could have gone in slightly more to where this beam is. However, there's a lot of detail here that I think will be difficult to paint up once the Gorgon is assembled. I've masked off the few contact points where I know the resin joins each other, and those bits need to be kept clear so I can glue them together. And then the external section where the ramp will be is all masked off as well. If I just add the ramp back in, you can see this section here will be the exterior grey, whereas this section here will be the interior white. So that will create a good seam. And to help with the transition between the two colours, I'm going to do a hazard stripe going all the way along the top and the sides. For the left hand side, I just had to mirror the masking from the right hand side. So I've done the outer side, the under, and following along the ramp. For the ramp, I've just masked this bit off because this will be externally visible. If we just add in the ramp, we can see that this bit here needs to be painted in that external grey colour. As this section is all going to be sealed off when I do the rest of the painting, we also need to consider the floor. So I've taken the floor piece and I've actually just masked this off, and I'm going to paint this at the same time. If I add in the floor, you can see the section which needs to be painted. This can then all be sealed off and then I can paint the rest of the tank. When it comes to painting that floor, I only need to concentrate on doing the base colours at this stage. I can do the weathering at the later stage when I do the rest of this floor, because the weathering will actually help blend those two pieces together. Potentially you could try and paint up all of the floor at this stage, but I really don't think it's worth it. The ramp just has the external facing masked up, which will be the grey. The ramp interior won't be the white of the walls, it will instead be the grey of the floor. And for the sides I'll probably be doing some hazard stripes. So with these pieces now split out, I can concentrate on masking up the exterior faces, just so I'm not getting any spray accidentally on pieces that I need to paint up at a later stage, and then I can get on with painting these. I'll cover painting and weathering these parts in the next video. As some of these steps are the same as painting up the driver cab, I'll focus on how I do the hazard stripes, along with some additional weathering techniques. As always, I hope you've enjoyed that video. Feel free to drop me a comment below, and if you want to stay notified about the next video, make sure you're subscribed. Until the next time, take care.